Hi everyone, and thanks for watching the Racket Quest channel on YouTube. Today I want to talk about string bed stiffness and what it means to you and how you can control string bed stiffness. As a racket technician, you know how to control it. As a player, you may not know how to control it or even how to relate to it. String bed stiffness simply is the impact resistance of the entire string bed when a ball makes contact with it. It's not the tension on this string or this string or that string or this string. It's the entire string bed stiffness. And that is a function of the stringing process, of course, also the string that's used, the string pattern, how dense it is or how open it is, and the technique and stringing machine used by the racket technician. But keep in mind that string bed stiffness is exactly that. It's the absolute value that the ball feels when you make impact with it. So keep that in mind, because it's very, very important to understand what it does and what it doesn't do. String bed stiffness has not been used as a value that the consumer can use until just recently. There are electronic devices that a player can buy, keep in the bag, and check string bed stiffness with. This happens to be the Beers ERT, and it's a popular device that is available from a number of vendors online, etc. If you have any questions, you can contact me and I can tell you where to get one. But with a piece of equipment like that, you can determine the string bed stiffness and immediately relate to how it works for you in terms of your game. Recently, a client was in and was complaining that the string bed didn't give enough pop. Okay? I'm not certain how to quantify pop, but it was not giving enough pop, and I think that was a function of the sound that was being heard as opposed to the string bed stiffness. But nonetheless, she wanted it to be tighter. So the racket was restrung, and the string bed stiffness was considerably higher than it was previously. But when I strung the racket to achieve what she wanted, I used a reference tension of 50. And that goes on a tag on the racket, and it's visible for everyone to see, which is not a good thing in this particular case. 50 pounds did not relate to anything she understood. The string bed stiffness was much higher than what she was using before, but the label indicated what I set the machine at to achieve that. It was different than the previous racket technician had used, because our techniques, our stringing machines, etc., are different. Not a question there. So what happens is she has to have a higher sticker number. And there's a couple ways of doing that. Obviously, you can write down what you string it at and print your label with something else on it if you are inclined to do that. Or you can explain to the customer why this occurs. Why do I have a string bed stiffness that's higher than what I just had, but it was strung at lower tensions? And this is where it comes in from a racket technician's perspective. How do you relate this to the consumer? How do they understand it? Okay? You have to make certain that they understand that string bed stiffness is the entire face of the racket and not an individual string. And we've all seen the people that come in and they grab this string and they pull it out and say, oh, it's too loose. It's not too loose at all. As a matter of fact, these strings on the outside around the perimeter of the racket can be quite low tensions because two things, the strings aren't as long, and number two, you don't want them to be so tight here that it causes the string bed to be too harsh. Okay, so there's a lot of things to consider. But how do we as racket technicians and how do you as consumers understand what string bed stiffness is? And that's our challenge, and that's what we have to begin to understand. So I would encourage anyone that can to get a device like the ERT 300 and use it And if you find an ERT value that works for you, that would be the value that I would request from my racket technician. If you have a racket and it has an ERT value of 41, for example, you ask your racket technician to achieve a DT of 41. How he does that is not important. What is important is how it resolves itself after he has strung the racket. So we'll carry on with this conversation later on, but I want everyone to consider the importance of the string bed stiffness as opposed to a reference tension, because the reference tension is the beginning of your request for stringing. The dynamic tension, or the string bed stiffness, however you achieve that number, is the ending. And the ending is the most important because that's what you have in your hand. You don't have any control over what the stringing machine is going to be pulling. You know, you just tell them at 55 and they set the machine at 55, and what you get is what you get. Anyway, we've got a little bit long on this one, but if you have any questions or anything you want to pass by me, you can certainly give me a call. Go to racketquest.com and communicate that way. Thanks so much for watching.